Oh. Got
You're
it.
set.
Okay, Josh, okay. Josh, you can leave anytime, right?
I'll hang out for this.
You'll stick around, okay, great. So the December minutes, we did not approve at the last meeting because a couple people weren't sure they had seen them, they weren't sure if they had been sent out, whether Deborah had sent them out or not, so we want to approve both the December 15th, 2022 minutes and the January 19th minutes, which you got, I don't know what, with the last week, a few days ago, like Friday, I think, Monday or Friday. A motion to approve, anybody
I'll make the motion
for one set or both?
for both.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, I agree. They are approved. All right, thank you. I'll take whatever little progress we can make. Now, Lauren, how you doing? You about to pass out? Or can you
I
hang
mean,
in there 5 or
I
10
can
minutes?
stick around for like 15 minutes.
Oh, great. Okay. All right. So let me see. All right. So here, this is, all right, let's do the Wyman Meadow things first. I just want to tell people where that's at and what I want to propose for our next step. You know, we had Owen on last time explaining what we were going to be, Owen from Wildlands Trust. And what I did after that, well, actually, I think I had done it actually before that. We had sent an email to, I had sent an email to Azu, who's the town DPW director, and Jonas, who's the town water director, and had gotten back an email from Azu raising a whole lot of questions like, well, how are we going to ensure public safety? Who's going to pick up the trash? A lot of things that we can easily answer. And so I got back, I said, okay, you know, let's meet where we can answer your questions, and ask that somebody in his department set up the meeting, seeing he was the one that was probably going to have the toughest schedule. Nobody got back to me, so I waited a couple weeks, and sometime within the last 10 days, I think, I sent another one, said, I haven't heard from you, can we get a meeting? And then I talked to Bob on Friday, and Bob was gonna try again too. It was Steve Sobel told me that's fairly typical, that's everybody, everybody has a trouble getting a Zoom to respond. I mean, it's not gonna be a problem answering those questions, and Bob, you could weigh in here on this. My thought is, like, maybe what I should do is just, I'll ask Owen to write up how they manage their properties, because they are in fact going to be managing this, and they do a lot of properties in town. They're in here, Great River Preserve. I don't know if you've been out there, Bob, but it's a huge 100+ acre place that they manage. And so I think we can answer all of the zoo's questions and maybe try that way. And I don't know if he'll ever respond, but I guess I'd like to be able to say, I think we've answered your questions. If you have any more, let us know. Otherwise, we're going to proceed to go to the Concom. Because
yeah, I mean, I think as we talked about the other day, Eileen, is, you know, before sending the letters, you know, we talked about inviting the neighbors to have a site visit.
That's the second thing I want to get to. Yeah.
I mean, and I think that once that happens, then, you know, whether Azu or Jonas weighs in or not, you know, just kind of sending a message to Michael and copying Kimberly that this is, you know, these are questions that were raised, we're addressing them this way, and just,
Okay.
you know,
All
skip that step.
That part. So not worry about, yeah. Okay. All right. That sounds good to me. I'm glad to hear you say that. The other thing I wanted to mention is on the last, when we talked about that, the last meeting, I had suggested that we would send a letter to the abutters rather than waiting for them to get the official Concom notice, which might make them a little nervous, or, you know, they wonder what's going on, that we would actually send a letter, tell them, you know, and I started writing it. Hello, you know, I'm your friendly open space committee member, and we have an exciting project in your neighborhood. And then I've been attending this mass land conservation. Oh, Nicole's here. Yay. Okay. Mass land conservation seminars on Thursday afternoon, except I didn't go today on my birthday. And they had some really good suggestions about reaching out to landowners. And I mean, the purpose was to acquire more land. But what I took away from it was that what would be even better than writing a letter is to actually have an event that we can invite those people to, like a site visit. Just ask them to step out their backyards and meet us at the kiosk, and we can have Owen there and I'll be there, and as many of you as we can arrange, and whoever else from the town, Bob, I don't know, I'm just thinking you're jumping into everything if you'd like to be there, but we'll just see, and just tell them this is what we're planning. And I know, I think that will just probably be a friendlier way of engaging them. And the other angle I wanted to mention to Owen too, he's away right now, but they're always looking for volunteers. They always engage people in the community to help work on their properties. So it'd be a great opportunity for him to say, who wants to sign up? And if you're worried about trash, here, become a volunteer and let us know if there are problems. If you're worried about people doing stuff out here that shouldn't be happening, be the eyes and ears on this property and give us a call. So I thought that would be a really good way to engage the neighbors first, and then let them get the notice from the Concom. So that's what I'm going to suggest to Owen when he's back in town, and I'm sure he'll go along with it. And I know he has no doubts that we can answer all of the zoo's concerns. So I think that's where I'll head then, and given Bob's suggestion, I think I'll start out just like a memo to Michael, and laying out where we're going and what we're doing, and then we can try to set a date when we can approach the neighbors. And Bob, I know you had told me that town, somebody would be able to get me the butter information.
Yeah, we can get you that. I mean, I would just suggest, Eileen, I think, outreach to the neighbors, friendly visit, site visit, if you can make it, great. I still would send the letter in advance of something coming from conservation, just because you may not get.
Oh, definitely. Oh,
And
definitely.
then they'll get the official
Yeah.
notice from Concom.
Yeah, no,
Um,
definitely. No, yeah. Instead of the letter, it would be, instead of the letter, this is what's happening. It's a letter. This is a heads up on what's happening, but come and we'll tell you more about it in your backyard there. And then we'll do, and then. It goes-
That's step one. Step two would be still sending the letter that, you're going to be doing this, because you may not get everyone to that
Yeah,
site visit.
right.
And then the third communication would be the
The
official
Concom.
notice from the Conservation Commission.
Yeah. Okay, so, does anyone have any other suggestions about how to approach that? Does that sound like a plan that we can?
I think it's a great idea. So just keep us
Okay.
updated with ideas for dates depending on the
Yeah.
timeline.
Okay, yeah. I'm assuming, probably a weekend would be the best, for everybody concerned in terms of the outreach, the actual, contact with them. So we'll see. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I don't think I need an approval from you for this, but, we'll be getting, I'll send out a draft of proposed letter, et cetera, to you before I send it out to the neighbors. And all right.
All right, I'm gonna sign off now.
Okay, thanks for
Thanks.
hanging in, Lauren.
Okay, see everyone
Bye.
next month. Bye.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's that. Oh, the Bridgewater State Forest, this has been another, I keep getting referred from one person. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. Nobody answers the phone messages. But again, what I learned on one of that Massachusetts Conservation conference I've been on is they had a list of the state foresters, and I hadn't been able, whatever I gotten on the website, DCR website before, nobody ever responded. And so I actually did have somebody return a voicemail today who said he's not the right person, but he absolutely knows who is, and he's going to pass my message on. And that whoever the person is, I think his name is Paul Gregory, and he actually does the management plans for the various state forest projects. So I'm hoping he can at least give us an update on what's history of that property or future plans or whatever, just so that we're aware of the status of it and can keep our eye on it. And Michael, did you ever go out there?
I did not get a chance to go out
Okay.
there. It was right near the holidays, and then have I'm still recovering from being under the weather, but I'm planning on getting out there before the next meeting.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let me know when you go. I can go with you and if you want company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think,
great.
I think John Hart was on our meeting last time, and I think he said he'd been out here too. He'd been out there before, so maybe he'd go with us if he's interested in, has anything else. he
That'd
could
be a
tell
great
us.
little field trip.
Okay, great. All right, so the next item is the North Street property adjacent to Murray Needs. I actually thought I would have something to say about this, other than the fact that I think I noted at the last meeting that Michael said there isn't any money for this. No, you told me that after the meeting. Okay, I'm losing track. At the last meeting, I did say that I was hoping that even though that property has officially been listed now, and that I had understood that Bob Hanson or David Hanson had said there had been an offer on it, that I wanted to find out if, and I posed the question, and Bob took it to Michael Dutton at his next meeting with him. Couldn't we at least make a call to the landowner and say, you got the property listed, whatever, but just know that we are interested in it, and would you give us a chance? Would you talk to us about it or something? And when Bob had his meeting with Michael said there's just not any money for that. Anything else you want to add to that, Bob? That was pretty much it.
That was,
Yeah.
that would be it.
Okay, so I haven't completely given up, though. What I did is I contacted Wildlands Trust, and I spoke with Scott McFadden, who has been working on Hanson Farms with us. And Scott was also involved in the Murray Needs acquisition on behalf of Wildlands Trust, along with the Trust for Public Land. Wildlands Trust does not manage the property, but they were involved with it. And so I just wanted to pick his brain a little bit to see if he had any ideas about, what he thought about the value of that property, if not the property right along the street, at least some of the property in the back, and just have him take a look at the area. And I know the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, I think that's the right agency, Joan Pierce, that had been talking to some people about acquiring some of some of the wetlands behind Murray Needs at 1.2, when I talked to her about it a year and a half ago. So anyway, I just want to pursue that just a little bit, see if there's any possibility to add some of that. It's just such a shame to, even if we didn't add any significant acreage, because Murray Needs has no parking, it's just unusable from a public perspective unless you want to park your car on North Street. So it just seems like to have those 9 acres be sold and not gain any benefit from it. I mean, maybe it comes down to if we have a property owner coming in there, Bob, at some point, and if whoever buys it starts building something, if we can negotiate maybe at least a parking lot for the town. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think if somebody comes in and buys it, I mean, depending on what it is, they're definitely gonna have to go before the Conservation Commission. They're definitely gonna have to go before the planning board. So, I mean, there'll be an opportunity, and maybe even zoning too. So, I think Michael's concern was both, there's not money available immediately right now, but just if there was the ability for the town to acquire it, how quickly we could move on that, given the fact that it's being actively marketed.
right. Yeah, but just sort of planting the idea that if we can negotiate if we can't make we can't acquire any of it, that we could at least at some point negotiate something to assure that there's parking somewhere for Murray Needs. Do you know where that property is, Bob? Have you been out there at all?
Yeah, no, I drive by it every morning.
Oh, you do? Okay, all right, yeah. All right. Lake Nip. So I sent out an email to everybody, just noting the 2 decisions that had been made. The rezoning request had been denied, and
I wouldn't reference that as a denial. It was tabled.
tabled, yeah. You
Yeah,
know,
I
well,
mean,
that's what
so,
I said too, yeah, and actually, somebody wrote an article for the some Plymouth newsletter that made it sound like the project's dead. You know, that the citizens of Bridgewater stood up and the town council voted it down and the state voted it down and whoopee, and yeah, this was a very early step. But, I mean, I was also saying it was only tabled, but I thought somebody at the council even said essentially tabled means dead. I mean, I
it
know.
doesn't, I mean, there's a process to bring it back.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and as I shared with you, and I'll share with, the committee right now is, so the special permit application that was granted when they created the plan development limited the amount of capacity that the entire project could have for both water and sewer to 100,000 gallons per day. I'm not sure exactly what the water consumption is, but they're right up against what the maximum capacity of wastewater that they can generate from that site. Certainly the 55 and older and the potential hotel would put them over the 100,000. I think subsequent to the last open space committee meeting, I had a meeting face to face with the Carneys with respect to that. They seem to feign amnesia as to the fact that this agreement from 1988 existed, capping out the 100,000. So as I've shared with members of the town council, the onus is on them to come up with a solution on how they're not exceeding that 100,000 gallons per day. And we have capacity issues with respect to the wastewater treatment plant overall for what our plans are for the town. So I don't think they're going to be in a position to come back with that until they can address that capacity issue. So by default, I think that, there's a pause there. And we'll see what they come back with.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then what I had said at the last meeting, our meeting, was that I mean, I think I raised with you, Nicole, that I thought you were probably the only person on this committee who would really have the expertise to offer, to step up and say, this is what they could be doing. That you would know, what a good project would look like. And you said you wouldn't have to read through the whole 600 pages. So I met with Bob, and I also called Pat Driscoll, chairman of the planning board, just to find out how, well, first with Pat, what could we do to help the planning board review this project? And if there's something, and I named you particularly, that you could provide, whether it's just a series, having an idea of what that project looks like, what would be some BMP, best management practices that could be employed that they haven't even suggested. And Bob knows a significant amount about that also. Given that it's in a little bit of a pause, I don't know if this is necessarily the time to do it, but I think it'd be nice to be prepared. And I mean, Pat was very interested in maybe having a joint meeting and, or even having I didn't say joint meeting, he didn't say that, but I mean, maybe having, Nicole, if you could attend a meeting of the planning board as part of the open space committee, or if you could even point us in the direction of, take a look at this document, and this is what the planning board could use to suggest better management and greater mitigation of that project. Bob can do the same thing, I know, and I think already has started doing that. But I think if the open space committee could weigh in on that, it would be helpful to the planning board as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think it's premature until they actually, submit, they were looking for approval to move, to get the zone change to allow the 55 and older. That wasn't allowed.
yeah,
They haven't submitted any plans. There's no proposed stormwater calculations. I mean, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
So, I think that, as I share with you, Eileen, I mean, my feeling is in my role as, planning is part of my office, that perhaps in the past, planning board hasn't dug down deep enough into some of these stormwater controls and BMPs and other issues, my absolute intention is we are going to address these
Really, yeah,
things.
okay, yeah,
So, certainly, somebody with Nicole's background can be helpful. I'm not an engineer, but I've been doing this for a while, but yeah, I think anything going forward, whether it's at Lakeshore or any other project, as it relates to stormwater, wastewater, water, where you're going to dig down deep in terms of making sure what that impact is townwide.
yeah. Yeah, so,
Well, I have a,
go ahead, Nicole, yeah.
I have a suggestion maybe of a way that we could potentially be a little proactive. Because I agree with Bob. I mean, they will be required to use appropriate design measures and, that. So instead of us kind of like nitpicking about that, I'm wondering if it's more that we think about the things that we're concerned about.
Mhm.
We're concerned about the hydraulic connection of that stream. We're concerned about habitat corridors. We're concerned about, so in other words, it could be broad environmental open space, issues or considerations that we have that we could potentially bring up in advancing. We're concerned about this, we're concerned about this, and perhaps if there is a way to kind of communicate that in advance, it may help them to try to address that when they bring it forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that we have had similar situations where we have been working, in whatever municipality. We know that there's neighbors that have concern. We, as designers, and I'm talking about my day job, we like to know that. We would love to head that off and be able to, in the public forum, say, I understand that there may be concern about this. This is how we're designing it. We're, going to move this here and do, whatever they decide to do. That's the one thing. I'm not familiar enough with the project yet to even know what those concerns may be. I had heard something about that stream, or some sort of culverted stream. I'm not sure what exactly that is. So I don't know if the plans are going to just change so much that it's not even worth kind of looking at the concepts that they put forward with the MIPA submissions.
Yeah, what is their time frame on submitting another, the response to MIPA's determination that they hadn't, do they have a time? Is there a time by which they have to respond now? Melissa, do you know that?
I don't think there's a time that they have to
Yeah,
respond.
okay, all right. So it's up to
But
them to figure out what they,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I guess we could just wait until they do, and then there'll be another, what was the comment period when they filed it was only a 30-day comment period, right? Yeah, so that's the thing. It's not a very long time, and for us to have a meeting and try to figure out something we want to do under a 30-day time frame is not going to be feasible. So I think to the extent we could identify some approaches and, maybe, I don't know, maybe we should make it more generic. Maybe it's not even specifically related to this project. Maybe it's but yeah, I mean, I don't know where we stand with this because I felt differently about it last month until we got Bob on board. And I think we could almost say, well, we don't have to do this anymore. Bob is gonna do it, and he's probably it's his full-time day job, and he knows the issues. Maybe it's more that just open space we are a voice of the community. And so if we can weigh in on these issues, not from the CED director's perspective, because he has to be neutral. He can provide his technical comments, but we can look at it a little more broadly, not strictly from, save the earth sort of, but with some technical expertise behind it, but from more of an advocacy perspective as a voice of the community. So I think maybe that would be our best role. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like or when we have to get our voices together, but.
I think that, again, nothing has been officially submitted to the town. And
Right.
I agree with Nicole in terms of when something is submitted, that we have the appropriate response. We do have a town engineer that, is in a position, and in my limited time here, I'm actually impressed with the thoroughness that he's looking at, applications before the Conservation Commission and, raising issues with respect to stormwater design as an example, recognizing that we have 100-year storms every year now, and maybe historically we haven't designed for that. So I mean, I think just as they move forward, keeping this in the loop, I don't have the impression that these are developers that want to do a group hug and kind of like,
Right.
sure, yeah, let's figure out a way to do this. I mean,
Yes, right, yeah,
they're going to need to, I think it's going to be through planning, zoning, conservation that, we control what it is they're doing.
yeah,
I was shocked that when I met with them, and they're posturing, I'm sure, that, what agreement are you, what special permit are you talking about? Well, and whether they were initial party to that or not, they're still a party to that. So, I mean, depending on what they come forward with, I think it's going to get a thorough review. The fact that you and Patrick and the planning board are talking, then I think it's appropriate as this goes through the approval process that you have an opportunity to weigh in on this.
yeah, okay. All right, well, it sounds like, yeah, so the, we don't, I mean, I'm always happy to procrastinate, and this isn't anything I can really tackle on my own. I can't just make a bunch of phone calls and figure out.
I just don't want us to be in a situation that, if a decision goes against them, that they feel they were prejudiced in advance of the decision.
Yeah,
I'm always trying to avoid us being in litigation.
right.
So, I mean, I think, being aware of it and talking about it is appropriate, but until you see what their plan is, there's nothing to react to.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that sort of the next part of this is, if, I don't know if anyone looked at the MIPA decision. I'm sure Melissa did, and Pat. I skimmed parts of it. I mean, you didn't have to go too far, that basically they have a lot of work to do yet. I mean, MIPA basically said they didn't do what they needed to do. They missed all sorts of things. I don't know, Melissa or Pat, if there's anything you want to add to that. I know I'm sure you both read it more thoroughly than I have. Was there anything that stood out to you particularly that you think is their biggest hurdle in responding, or they just didn't do what they just didn't answer the questions, and whether they can answer the questions with what they propose seems to be the issue, or whether they're gonna be able to do nothing more than say, hey, we're complying with the regulations and we're gonna go to the Concom, and it's up to them to decide.
I think, Eileen, there were a lot of things where the data was not supplied in the way it should have been supplied for MIPA to review it. And also there were changes between the ENF and the DEIR that weren't explained. So, in
And there
addition
were some
to,
inconsistencies too in their own data. They said about what was impervious land, what was going to be disturbed. The MIPA
Yeah.
couldn't make sense about the different documents that they presented, what they were actually saying. So yeah.
yeah, and things with regard to traffic, and I think there were things with regard to water, and the list goes on. And also, the way they had an issue, MIPA had an issue with the fact that they used the appendix in a way, I guess, that they didn't want them. They wanted them to incorporate data into the body of the DEIR, not leave it to the appendix. And also kind of the canned way, I think, although MIPA didn't say this, but there was kind of a canned way that they responded to all of the commenters.
Yeah.
And I think they would like to see a more engaged approach, to answering public comments. So I think, Pat, have I missed anything?
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, it was a huge report, so
Yes, right, yeah.
there was an awful lot to cover, but they didn't do a great job on it. So
Yeah.
that's the bottom line.
Yeah, so they're, I mean, if, maybe they'll actually do a better job, if not environmentally better, at least more thorough in their explanations, and there'll be more to respond to at the next stage anyway, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm happy to leave it there then. Nicole is still with us, but, I'm not sure she, Nicole, if you have any other thoughts, do you have anything else you wanted to add, or?
Nope.
Okay. All right. All right. Okay, so, well, that was the next item, was what we should do next, but I guess we're saying we won't do anything right now, so.
And the only other thing I will share on this, Eileen, and we talked about it the other day, and I'll share this with the other folks that are here. The town is needing to sign a agreement that we're not going to increase the amount of discharge that we have at the wastewater treatment plant based on 2013 numbers. And we're doing that because that will allow us to not have to pay interest on the money that we borrowed. But we've recognized that at the same time, this agreement that was executed in 2013 doesn't contemplate any of the things that have happened since. The amount of 40Bs that have been approved, expansion at the university, and where we are looking at in terms of redevelopment downtown. So we're going to have to file some documentation with environmental protection saying that we want to move these pieces on the chessboard. That's going to impact Lake Shore as well, because
Yeah.
again, that 100,000 gallons a day is hanging out there. There are things they might be able to do on site to mitigate it, but I don't want to use, I know some council members had talked about moratorium. I don't even think we have to use that word, because by default,
Yeah,
there are certain things that have to happen that are going to require us to have greater oversight and greater control on anything we do going forward, because it's unlikely that we're going to get an increase in the discharge permit from
that's
DEP.
USEP, Region 1, right? USEPA, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So, I mean, we did meet with Senator Timmelty earlier this week. We met with Congressman Keating's office this week. So we're sharing that, these are constraints that we have as a community, but some of our capacity issues are created by things we have no control over.
right, yeah,
Because, the Commonwealth says you have to do these 40Bs. Okay.
yeah,
Well, Lakeshore did a lot of 40Bs.
yeah, yes, yeah. Okay.
So
All
I
right.
think just, we continue to monitor it, and as applications come before various boards, we will, keep you in the loop, but, it's capacity, infrastructure capacity is something I'm like laser focused on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna add, I don't know if any of you, I'm sure Pat, you did, I don't know, Melissa, if you saw, if you were at the town council meeting or saw Michael's presentation to the town council. Have either of you seen that? Was it the February 7th? Was that the meeting date, Bob? Or no? Was that it? Is that it? February
It
7th?
was, right.
Did you see his development, his ideas about development, like?
It wasn't Michael's presentation, it was my
Did I
presentation.
say Michael? Oh, I meant
Yeah.
Bob. No, I was meant to say Bob. Did you see Bob's? Did either of you see Bob's presentation to the council on February 7th? If you haven't, go to, anybody, if you haven't, Michael, I think you'd be really interested in it too. Nicole, it's very exciting, really, very exciting.
I think we're up to 15 views on YouTube.
Oh, well, I was one, and, well, actually, no, I watched it on Facebook. So, but anyway, Michael, Bob has wonderful ideas, and the town council was just falling all over itself, saying how exciting this is and was, and, so anyway, this town is gonna be transformed in 5 years, 10 years, I don't know.
5 to
But
10
yeah,
years, I think, is accurate.
How many, 10?
No, I think 5. I mean, these things, the 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to be in a much better place.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, definitely go and watch it, because it's, I think it'll make you even more enthused than you already are as members of this committee and neighborhood activists, so. There may be a light at the end of the tunnel, I don't know. Okay, so let's see, that was an aside. There's another, the Massachusetts Land Conference that I went to about outreach to landowners was very good. I didn't go to today's, but there's one more next week. I can't remember what the topic was, but I actually wanted to mention this to Lauren, and she's not here, but we did Lauren did a list of the chapter 61 property owners. She updated the list that was in the open space plan a couple years ago when we first started convening, and she updated the list, and I'm sure it needs to be updated again now, but that's one of the places to start to do some outreach to landowners. We didn't really do anything, and I'm still not sure we would, because some of the parcels, there's not a lot of open space left in Bridgewater. Some of these towns that were attending this conference, there are places out in central Mass and western Mass that have many acres that they can pick up off a map and really zero in on. So our pickings are much slimmer now, but it still might be something we want to do, is at some point write a letter to these chapter 61 landowners and any others we can identify. So okay, last thing, Michael, there's a Parks and Trails meet and greet roundtable discussion. It's called this time, the 28th, 4 to 5 at the Academy Building. Can you go to that?
Yep, I can absolutely do that.
Okay, and I had a long talk today with John Hart, and he was gonna try to come, but he wasn't sure if he could make it, but he will be there. And I suggested that you and he talk and about outreach information about the parks. And I mentioned this to Lauren too before you got on, because she did that initial update to put like parking and directions and stuff that's on the Open Space Committee webpage at this point. But that's, those NRTB documents are 20 years old or so, and really the way they appear now, the first thing you get is like a long paragraph about the history of the site. And that's not what people need. I mean, we need something short and succinct, like, how long are the trails at this park? Are they accessible? Can you take a baby carriage? Do you need hiking boots? Is it wet? It just needs to be much more. And then, the history's interesting, but that's not what somebody wants to know when they're going out on Saturday morning and wants to take a hike. So, what I wanted to ask John is whether he's considers his position one where he can start writing that stuff, because he talked last time, like he's had quite some experience in that, and he's very interested in doing that. So I hope that you two can connect. I'm going to be in California on the March 28th. So, but I thought that you and he could connect and talk about because I know are you a graphic artist? Is that your professional?
Yeah, I'm a graphic designer. Yep.
Graphic designer, okay, because I
Yeah.
know you have expressed interest in getting involved in this stuff before. So I think this might be a chance for you two to figure out where to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Would be really excited to do that.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bob?
No, I mean, I think it's a great idea. And then, two other things I just want to say before you close the meeting, if we're done with that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
The Styles and Hart grant has been approved by National Parks. We happened a lot sooner than we thought. That will be before the council on Tuesday night for signature.
And how much did we get? How much did they approve?
I think it's just slightly over 400,000.
Okay. Okay.
So we will accelerate what our initial schedule was. We didn't think we would hear until June. So I've reached out to our engineering partner yesterday. We will get the bid documents out probably in the middle of March. And, we'll have that project completed within this calendar year, which is really exciting.
Okay.
The other thing I want to mention is Steve Sobel, who has been our environmental planner, had an opportunity in Middleborough. He has aspirations to be a town manager or town administrator. I don't know why, but he does. And so he had an opportunity to go to Middleborough. He was going to do that on a part-time basis and then work with us in Bridgewater part-time. That subtly accelerated into 2 part-time positions in Middleborough, which then morphed into a full-time position. So he will be leaving us as of the 28th of February.
Yeah.
And we're excited for him because this is something that he wants to do. We are posting, we've kind of reconstituted what that position should be. We're positioning it as a assistant planner to help Shane O'Brien, who is our planner. We do want somebody that has some conservation experience, but I've done this for a long time, so I anticipate that I will be stepping in, at least in the short term, to do some more of the conservation work. So it just an FYI on that.
Yeah.
The last thing I do want to say is if you do look at the town council meeting from last week, we talk a lot about Campus Plaza and what could be happening there, and the fact that Styles and Hart is an amenity to that.
Mhm.
We are in very active conversations now with the owners of Campus Plaza on a number of different things in terms of transit oriented development. They like the fact that they've got that green space behind there. Been working with the veterans group that has cleaned up Town Landing. There's some things they want to do there. So my MO going forward is to continue to participate with this committee as well as other committees, but open communication and, Eileen, you coming in to talk to me on a regular basis is all very helpful. I mean, you've
Yeah,
got good
I
people.
just sent an email to John too, because John Hart, and I said, go in and talk to him. Because he said, I'm trying to get some names straight here, because when he didn't know, he said, send me an email and tell me who's who. And so when I gave him your name and I said he should definitely go in and talk with you because you're a good person to get advice from and just keep in touch with. So I hope he does that.
So do I.
But getting back to the Styles of Heart, so this connects a little bit with what I was just talking about, the outreach materials. So do you know, Bob, I mean, my impression has always been that when Styles and Heart is going to be, Styles and Heart is spoken of as the flagship for all the town parks, and that within that process, there will be materials, signs, a website for Styles and Heart, something, the outreach materials will be designed as part of that project by somebody, whether it's someone in town or a consultant, and that should then be the basis, the format for what we will do with the other town parks. I mean, at a much lower level, but I mean, you'll have a sign, you'll have a logo, a design that'll say Bridgewater Park, Styles and Hart, and we will be able to then adopt it for whatever.
Yeah, so we're required to kind of follow a template that National Park Service has for their template for signs
Oh,
because they funded it,
oh,
but they
okay.
allow for other organizations and
Uh-huh.
groups to be on that sign.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that we need consistent branding on everything that we do. So yeah, that definitely is going to be part of it.
Yeah, so I mean, what we can't do at this point, or I don't think there's any point, is ours. John really wants to get some more user-friendly information up there, but I don't, my comment to him was, I don't think it's worth really trying to design much yet in any final format because of that. And I think the Ironworks Park, I was on that committee, talk about removing the bridge, and there's supposed to be some money to put in signs at Ironworks Park commemorating the bridge that is no more. And that there would be some redoing some signage for that whole area, redoing. So I think that one too may have some money or design work as part of the culmination of that project. So I think there are 2 big projects going on in town already. And then Wyman Meadows, Mike, I think you could probably help us work with them too. that is obviously a town park, but it's gonna be, most of the land is gonna be Wildlands Trust, so that's gonna have to be some kind of a joint sign. So that one's gonna be a little different than the others as well.
I mean, I would like to, work with Mike. I mean, with respect to Styles and Hart, we have to incorporate some logo from national parks, but we have some latitude in terms of what the signs look like. So I think as we look at all of Parks and Recreation and open space across town, that should be a consistent theme, and we can
Yeah.
incorporate as appropriate, if it's this funding source or it's Commonwealth funding source.
Okay,
I think that's important that we're consistent.
yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah, I mean, that's what we've been, I mean, yeah, that was kind of our charge when this committee first was formed, how, as people were clamoring for some notification or information, about the parks, and then also that it needed to be consistent, we've been talking about that for years, but yeah, they're just, it seems like it does have to have some kind of a.
I mean, as an example, I was at Town Landing on Friday and there is the framework for a sign. There's just no sign.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the same thing's true at Wyman Meadows. I mean, well, Carver Pond does have kind of a nice sign and it's in good shape. I think Tuckerwood has one also. Ironworks Park actually has some historic information that's quite interesting, but it's all very faded. It's been there a long time, and so yeah, there's a lot of work on all of them. But yeah, no, and John is very eager to get going on this stuff. But I think, yeah, I was trying to slow him down a little bit, saying, he said, but it's almost summer. We want to get signs out there now. And I said, I don't, I think it's.
We had him on the call with the state earlier this week as we talked through what we need to do, moving Styles and Hart forward. I mean, I'm going to take the lead on that with Steve leaving, so to be continued, but I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the design system for National Park Service, and it's pretty straightforward, easily, I think, replicable by us if that's what they need us to do.
I can send you the logo that they want to use, and we can use that any way we want, Mike. So I'll send that to you tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be great. And for the other stuff, I completely agree. We can create a design system. And what I can do is, this is kind of what I do on a daily basis, but once we have like one approved system for one park, there will then be like a guide that is based off of it, just like how the National Park Service does. And it'll cover everything, whether it's a small park or a large park, or a small space or a large open space. So yeah, that would be great. Would love that.
All
And
right.
when we finish that, Mike, we're going to move on to parking signs.
Yes, yeah, there's lots of stuff that you can do for that. Yeah, designing these systems is a lot of fun.
Agreed.
All right, the next meeting, all right, so Michael, you're going to the 3/28 meeting for sure, and
Yep.
yeah, okay. And our next meeting is March 16th. I think that's it. Any questions,
you-
anybody?
If you want to adjourn, you just ask for a motion
Right,
to
no, yeah,
adjourn.
yeah, I will. I'm asking if anybody wants to say anything.
I
first.
just had one question. I wasn't sure. I hadn't heard anything about it in a while. Have you heard any updates on the old State Farm Trail?
Yeah, Kitty Doty, you probably know more about that than I do, Michael. We just submitted a letter sometime in December, I think.
Supporting it, right?
Yeah, right. Probably somebody calling me to wish me a happy birthday, but I'll get it later. Bob, do you know anything more about that than I do? I can't tell you exactly what the status is, but it is moving ahead. I know that, but
I don't.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
5 weeks, 3 days.
Right, yeah, that's how long he's been here. Okay, thank you, everybody. Oh, well, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn so Eileen can celebrate her birthday.
Susan, somebody's calling me.
I will second it.
All right. I'm in favor.
I
Bye, everybody. Thank you. See you next
I
time.
know.